The sky above Solstice burns forever. It is a white flame without warmth, a wound that refuses to close. From orbit, the planet gleams like bone polished by centuries of prayer. Beautiful, empty, wrong. Kill-Team Carthage descends through the haze, black-armored giants surrounded by a halo of pale fire. Their transport, the Crucible of Faith, shudders as its hull screams against the glare. Inside the hold, silence grips them tighter than any harness. Alaric watches the sun through the viewport. It does not move. It hangs in the same place no matter the angle of descent, an eye that refuses to blink. His armor hums faintly beneath his skin, vox channels crackling with faint insectile static. Brightness levels off the charts. Othis mutters, fingers of steel twitching over his data slate. No atmospheric attenuation. No cycle variance. The day has calcified. Speak plainly, Ironhand, growls Hask, wiping sweat from his scarred brow. Are we landing in a furnace or a tomb? Both, Othis answers. Depending on what you believe burns longer. Sister Seraphine sits between them, head bowed, rosary coiled around her gauntlet like a serpent. The pale beads shimmer faintly under the interior lights. Every world that forgets to pray eventually forgets to sleep, she says softly. Hask snorts. If the Emperor is watching, he'll need a stronger glare. Vare turns toward him, helm motion slow, voice calm. Mock faith again, Wolf, and the next light you see will be your own funeral pyre. Peace, both of you, Alaric cuts in. The Emperor hears us even here. His voice is quiet, level. The others fall silent at once. Faith is his weapon. Command, its echo. The ship lands with a soft quake, dust boiling up in white clouds that vanish into the light before they can rise. The ramp opens and the day rushes in, blinding, endless. Their armor filters dull the glare to bearable levels, but still the world looks flayed raw. They step into the light. The soil beneath their boots is glass, fused into flowing shapes by some impossible heat. The wind is dead. The horizon glows like a blade fresh from the forge. Vare scans the plain, helm sweeping from one direction to the other. No shadows, he says at last. None at all, Alaric looks down. His armor gleams, but the ground beneath it is the same brightness everywhere. No outline, no contrast, no relief. Even the symbols etched on his armor appear flattened, robbed of their holy depth. Strange trick of the light, Hask mutters, half to himself. Othis shakes his head. Not a trick. An absence. Without darkness, definition dies. Seraphine kneels beside a lump of glass, what remains of a human form mid-prayer, hands fused together, features erased by the sun. Then how did the Mechanicus define the Sol lens in such a place? She whispers. Alaric studies the horizon where the outpost should stand, only a smear of brightness against brightness. We will find out soon enough. They move across the plain. Every step echoes strangely, soundless for a heartbeat, then returning like a memory, too late and too hollow. Their shadows never appear, not even when Othis's Auspex projects a laser map. The remnants of civilization rise from the light like ghosts. Melted habs slump inward, roofs sagging into pale puddles. Crops are frozen mid-growth, stalks of white glass that shimmer with captured sunlight. Skeletons stand in fields, still clutching tools, their bones translucent as quartz. Hask stops beside one. The skeleton's skull gleams with faint halos like a crown of glass. Poor bastards, he murmurs. Didn't even get to die in the dark. Death is not the end, Seraphine says. It is the last petition. These ones were never heard. Perhaps something else answered, Vare adds. Othis kneels, running a metal thumb along a fragment of bone. Trace elements of silicon and photonic residue. Flesh converted to lattice. The process is not combustion, it's translation. Translation into what? Alaric asks. Othis looks up, the glow from his augmetic eye flickering across his helm. Light, they fall silent. Above them the sun stares unblinking. Hours pass as they reach the ruins of Outpost Glarefield. Its structures shimmer with a feverish brightness. No marks of battle, no corrosion, no decay. Only the stillness of something preserved by too much purity. Inside the main corridor, the air feels heavy, thick with static and the faint scent of burned incense. The walls gleam like polished ivory. Their armor lamps dim instinctively, sensors refusing to compete with the omnipresent radiance. Hask runs a gauntlet over a bulkhead. Feels warm, he says, like it's breathing. It's not heat, Othis replies. It's residual energy. The metal's saturated with photons. They've nowhere to go. Alaric moves deeper into the hall, each step quieter than the last. His auto-senses record constant light input. No fluctuations, no shadows, no pattern of movement. The world has stopped breathing yet refuses to die. A corridor opens into a control chamber. Consoles stand melted but intact, their surfaces smooth and sterile. A skeleton sits slumped at the central station, hooded in Mechanicus robes turned to white dust. Its augmetics glimmer faintly, still reflecting the endless day. Vare approaches it. Cause of death? Exposure, Authus says, but not thermal. Light of this intensity should blind or burn. Instead it emptied them. Seraphine whispers a prayer and presses her fingers to the skull's brow. May the Emperor light your path beyond this false dawn. A flicker ripples across the metal beneath her touch. For an instant, Alaric sees something move within the reflection. A ripple, a shimmer, a shape that tries to take form. Then it's gone. He glances up. Did anyone else? No, Vare interrupts. Keep moving. His voice is too sharp, too quick. Alaric notes it but says nothing. They find the data core chamber. Authus begins his rites of activation, chanting binary hymns under his breath. The hum of his servo arms joins the whisper of the static. It should not still function, he mutters. Yet power flows. From what source I cannot say. Perhaps the sun itself powers it, Seraphine suggests. Perhaps, Authus answers. But that would require the sun to notice us. The console flickers. Across the surface, characters bloom in lines of golden light. A phrase repeats over and over, burned into the circuits. Remember the light that burns but does not die. Hask laughs uneasily. That's comforting. Vare frowns. These are not Mechanicus protocols. Alaric reads the line again, and beneath it something else begins to appear. Letters forming in the reflection of his armor, not on the console itself. The mirrored words glow faintly. We see you. The light brightens, pulsing once like the slow beat of a heart. Then it fades. They step back in silence. Seraphine's rosary beads shimmer in her palm. The Emperor's light does not lie, she whispers, but this imitates it. Authus powers down his auspex, voice low. The Sol lens may not be a device at all. Alaric looks toward the viewport at the far end of the chamber. The sun blazes beyond the glass, white and endless. For the first time since landing, he senses motion. A slow drift, barely perceptible but real. The sun, he says. It's moving, Hask laughs. About time. Thought it'd forgotten how. No, Vare murmurs, turning to his readouts. Not along its arc. It's moving against it. Authus checks his data. Impossible. Orbital alignment fixed. Axial rotation. Look, they gather at the viewport. The light outside shifts, crawling across the horizon like a living thing. The sun itself does not change position, but a second radiance blossoms beneath it, rising from the ground, climbing upward in deliberate defiance of gravity. A sphere of light, small and distant, yet too bright to look at directly. It moves toward them. Seraphine's voice trembles. The light remembers. Alaric feels the heat of his armor rise, though the air remains cold. His hand goes to his weapon. He does not raise it. The instinct to fight fades beneath a deeper instinct, one he cannot name. Seal the chamber, he orders quietly. Now. The light outside flares again, as if in answer, pulsing once more in rhythm. Slow, steady, breathing. The world of Solstice does not sleep. It only waits. Outpost Glarefield stands where the fields end and the mirror spires begin. A low hive of relay domes and cable trenches. Antennae-like spines, all of it bleached to the same relentless white. Bone white. Salt white. The color of last rites. They enter through a cargo gate that no longer knows how to be a shadow. The gate's mechanism is fused into a single pale seam. Hask shoulders through with a grunt. The metal does not groan. It parts as if persuaded by silence. Inside, the world is paper. Floors without grain. Consoles smoothed into blank altars. Every surface scoured of depth until only outline remains, and even outline feels like a rumor. Their boots leave no imprint. Their breath makes no cloud. The air tastes of copper that never touched blood. Glarefield, Authus says, voice low. Solar relay hub. Mirror control. Beam collimation and spectral partition. Plainly, Hask replies, because Jest is a scaffold and he needs one. Light handling, Authus answers. Everything that points the sun. Vare moves ahead of them with controlled stillness, helm tilting by degrees that imply measurement rather than curiosity. No scorch pattern, he murmurs. No directional burns, saturation, uniform. Seraphine lingers at a wall where thousands of cog-toothed seals once hung like rosaries. The wax has gone white and glassy, each seal a frozen tear. Her finger traces the shape of a prayer that once curved there. It curves still, but only because the light remembers where it lay. They reach a central gallery, a vaulted room. Once it would have hummed with machine voices and the soft breath of men. Now it is a museum of obliterations, banks of consoles, towering hollow pylons, the skeleton of a Vox array collapsed in an attitude that suggests kneeling. Alaric says nothing. He catalogues. Entry points, lines of fire, movement corridors that do not exist because nothing in here will cast a line. The discipline steadies him. Not enough. Helm cams, Vare says. Record everything, they obey. Lenses blink in unison. Capturing a world that refuses to be captured. Hask lifts his gauntlet, makes a childish wave at his own lens.
Smile for the archives, brothers.
The light loves an audience. Hold it in your mouth, Alaric says, gentle as a knife laid flat. The wolf grins anyway. It is a thing he does when the void looks back. Othis deploys a mechadendrite toward a ribcage of optical fiber. The cables are stiff, but not from cold. Stiff the way spun glass is stiff. The way secrecy is stiff. Signal path, he mutters. Down the central trunk. Up and out to pan array. Feedback channels. He stops. His head tilts the smallest degree. Alaric watches the angle. What, Alaric says. It's humming, Othis says. They all listen. The room does not hum. It is soundless, not here, Othis adds. In the optical. In the light itself. Seraphine closes her eyes and opens them. Nothing changes. The monastery at Solstice taught that the Emperor's light carries intention. Perhaps intention hums. Intention is not measurable, Othis replies. Vare. Only to those who refuse to measure it. Hask laughs once, soft. A coin dropped into a dry well. The silence swallows it whole. They fan through the gallery. White corridors feed white rooms. Every chamber repeats the same annihilated grammar. Consoles smoothed by radiance, chairs melted into bas relief, bones assuming the posture of work with priestly dignity. A teacup sits fused to a counter and a little refectory annex. Inside, the liquid is now a clear pebble, light caught in a small polished stone. Hask flicks it with a fingernail. It does not ring. Nothing here, he says. There is everything here, Vare counters. It is simply in the wrong form. Othis halts at a wide inspection bay with tall windows opening over the mirror spires beyond. The panes are not panes. They are membranes, a single unbroken veil of white translucence. Beyond, the outside architecture is warped by glare into a watercolor of knives and sails. Look, Othis says. At first they do not. They are still learning how to look in a place with no contrast. Then Seraphine steps forward and breathes out, and the breath is not visible. But the membrane trembles anyway, and that tremble casts the thinnest ripple, and in the ripple the light inside the room seems to kink, not bend. Kink, like thread caught on a barb, a strand hangs in the air between console and floor. Nothing supports it. It is a hair-thin filament of brightness, slightly brighter than the brightness around it. Another strand runs from the ceiling to Othis's gauntlet. Another bisects the room at knee height. One of the tech hymns, Seraphine says softly, in the litanies of the Radiant Forge. Light is a straight pilgrim. When the pilgrim stops, a shrine is made. Photonic retention, Vare says. The thought sliding into place with satisfaction he refuses to show. The beams are bound, stuck, stasis. Stasis requires a well, Othis says. Something to trap them. Mass, Vare answers. Or a field with mass-like behavior. Either the light is heavier than light or the world is deeper than it should be. Hask reaches toward the knee-height strand. Alaric's hand snaps closed on his wrist an instant before contact. No, Alaric says. Hask nods once. His grin is gone. He did not mean to touch it. He meant to prove he could and still live. There are arguments men have with themselves that end only in confession or a grave. Othis angles a sensor toward the nearest filament. The data sputters with nonsense, then converges on the only answer nonsense has ever loved. Stored, he says. Interference frozen. The echo of a beam that will not stop echoing. Light echoes, Vare says. The phrase has a rightness. It holds. They map the bay with care. Filaments lace the air like spider silk in a cathedral no one can leave. Some are taut. Some sag by fractions. Some hum when Othis servo passes near. A hum none of them can hear and all of them feel in their teeth. At crosspoints, faint motes hang like dew, little beads where brightness congeals. Danger, Ver says. Yes, Alaric answers. Captain, Othis says. Permit interface, Alaric looks at the web. At the white. At his warriors. Define interface. A cautious modulation, Othis says, which is how Iron Hands say prayer. A touch with numbers, Alaric weighs it. They did not come to admire. They came to retrieve the soul lens. They cannot retrieve what they cannot understand. Knowledge is a weapon, the wrong shape often, but still a blade. Do it, he says. Slowly. Othis extends a mechadendrite tipped with a wafer-thin mirror pad. He raises it toward a strand not quite shoulder-high. The strand quivers as he approaches, humming emptily to itself. The pad hovers a hair's breadth away. Othis shifts a frequency. The pad's surface darkens, then brightens, then becomes a perfect nothing that invites reflection like a pool invites a drowning. Contact. The strand kisses the pad. The pad kisses back with engineered obedience. The air breathes. For the first time since they landed, the room changes. A ripple races through all the filaments at once. Brightness flows along them like liquid in capillaries. The dew beads swell. They do not fall. The strands tug toward one another, seeking the easiest path. Where paths meet, something like a knot forms. Small, dense, radiant, and then the knots drift. 2 to the left, 1 to the right. 1 straight toward Alaric. He does not move. He is a Black Templar. He does not retreat from light or from knives that pretend to be light. The knot pauses an arm's length from his helm. It gathers itself not into a sphere now, but into an oval. Then an oval that has top and bottom. That has tilt. That suggests cheek and brow by negative space alone. A mask written in the language of sun. It is a face. It has no expression. It does not need one. It is made of all expressions. Another forms before Ver. Another before Hask. Another before Seraphine, brighter than the rest. They watch their watchers. They are not mirrors. They are not echoes of the living. They are accumulations of looking compressed into visitation. Captain, Ver says, voice level. Disengage. Othis diminishes the coupling a fraction. The face is dim. He increases it. They clarify. He shifts phase. Their positions alter by inches with the obedience of puppets. The filaments sing to his instruments with no sound at all. They are patterns, Othis says. Local maxima in a constrained light field. Noise made flesh, or its nearest equivalent. They are people, Hask says very quietly. The way a story is a person. Seraphine's beads glow faintly in her palm. Every prayer leaves a trace. Enough traces become a presence. Alaric lifts his gauntlet to chest height, no higher. He does not extend a finger. He simply moves his hand a degree to the right. The face follows. Then it does not. Then it moves again on its own. A subtle drift, as if something behind the mask just remembered it had the right to be curious. End it, Alaric says. Othis retracts the pad. The strand snaps back into its first tension. The ripple passes out through the windows like a rumor leaving a city. Beads subside. Faces unmake themselves with regret that none of them can hear and all of them feel. They wait to see if the room will forgive them. The room forgives nothing. It simply resumes its white. Review the feeds, Ver orders. They gather around a console husk and cast the helm cam captures onto its dead surface. The slate obeys. The world in the recording is not the room they stand in. It is the same room and not night. The gallery on the screen is black-blue, drenched in shadow. The filaments bloom like star trails between voids. The knots burn like candles. Their own forms are silhouettes cut from colder darkness. The faces are not faces in the recording. They are lanterns shaped like remembrance. Hask whistles under his breath, then stops because the sound of it never arrives. So that is what dark looks like. Helm sensors amplify low light by algorithmic reconstruction, Ver says, though he too is watching as if at a window in a childhood house. They find contrast where none exists. They invent a night to fit the data. Invent, Othis repeats. He does not like the verb. He is made of truer ones. They scrub back. They run forward. They freeze on the moment Alaric lifted his gauntlet. In the recording, the lantern face leans toward him in the exact instant his hand tilts. But there is something else, a lag, then an anticipation. As though the light had learned him 2 heartbeats in, and had hoped he would be consistent forever. Audio, Ver says. Play it raw. Alaric's voice fills the room from the slate. He hears himself command and caution and name. He hears Hask's laughter, subdued. Althus's recitation, Seraphine's prayer, Ver's iron quiet. The cadence is true. The breaths are accurate. The timing exact. Then a word is wrong. It is small at first. A vowel held a heartbeat too long. A consonant a shade sharp. He lets it play. The errors multiply very gently like frost on glass. A phrase stumbles and then does not. In the stumble is a warmth. In the warmth is an invitation. Another pass. Another replay. They all hear it now. Their voices are theirs, and then they are attended by something that has learned to speak in chorus with them. Not layered above. Laid inside, Alaric's voice end it, and just beneath it, as if spoken through his own teeth by a mouth that is not his. Dumbed. Burn with me, Hask's voice. So that is what dark looks like. The smile in it holds, and then... Burn with me, Seraphine's voice. Every prayer leaves a trace. Burn with me, Ver's voice flattened by discipline. Audio. Play it raw. Burn with me, Althus's voice cold as an instrument. They are patterns. Burn with me, silence in the room. The slate whispers with nothing at all. Outside the membrane windows, the mirror spires wait like obedient saints. Light knots form and unform along their edges, too far to matter, too near to deny. Alaric reaches for the slate and stops with his palm hovering a hair above the surface. He does not touch. He does not need to. Everything here records. Everything here replays. They stand together in the brightness that refuses to reveal anything and in the recording of night that reveals too much. The same sentence keeps returning in their voices, in no one's voice, in the voice light uses when it wants company. Burn with me. They find it at noon that will not end. A mountain carved from glass rising from the horizon like a blade buried in the world's heart. The monastery is visible from 30 kilometers away, its spires bending the sun into fractured halos that hang motionless in the air. The closer they march, the quieter the world becomes. Not empty and not quite, but expectant. Each step falls into a silence that feels shaped, sculpted, deliberate. When they reach the gates, the symbols of the ecclesiarchy are still visible, melted and half-run like wax caught mid-blessing. The twin-headed Aquila sprawls across the facade, its wings fused together into one blind eye. Emperor preserve us, Seraphine breathes. Her voice breaks against the stillness like glass against marble. Hask stands beside her, helm tilted back to study the tower that seems to pierce the sun. Guess they took his light a bit too seriously, Ver replies without turning. Blasphemy disguised as humor is still blasphemy. It's how I pray, Hask says, grinning beneath his helm. Just louder. Althus moves past them, augmetics ticking, mechadendrites tasting the scorched air. Readings consistent with optical crystallization. The entire structure has become a resonant prism. Glass that hums. Glass doesn't hum, Hask mutters. Althus doesn't look back. Neither does light. Until today. They step inside, the air is hot but without heat. The colorless radiance makes depth a lie. Hallways seem to run both forward and backward at once. Their armor registers constant reflection. Microbursts of glare that bounce endlessly until the lenses of their helms stutter. Rows of pews line the nave. Upon each one rests a figure in blackened robes, their skin drawn tight and gleaming, polished by time until they look carved from the same glass that entombs them. Some kneel, some raise hands skyward, all face the same altar. The altar itself is a single pane of translucent crystal, the size of a tank's hull. Inside, frozen as if trapped mid-breath, hundreds of eyes stare outward, human, mechanical, animal, unknown. Seraphine's rosary beads click once between her fingers. They mummified themselves in worship, she says. Ritual starvation, perhaps. A devotion of light. Light doesn't care who worships it, Alaric says. She looks up at him, her voice a whisper. Then it isn't light. They advance down the aisle. Each step echoes faintly, though none of them make sound. The reverb comes from somewhere ahead. A whispering delay, as if the sound must pass through the light before it reaches the ear. The walls around them are murals of melted pigment and glass, yet still, shapes persist. The Emperor stands depicted in radiant gold, his eyes rendered as blazing mirrors. Beneath him, lines of robed figures reach upward. their arms outstretched not in prayer but surrender. Rays of sunlight lance down, spearing them through the heart. Seraphine runs her gauntlet along a line of inscription at the base. The script is Old Gothic, warped and twisted. "To the sun that watches," she reads aloud. He sees without shadow. He remembers all forms of devotion. Hask laughs under his breath. "The sun that watches." Sounds like a campfire ghost story. Seraphine's tone hardens. "Every superstition begins as faith, and ends as ash," Vare says. They turned worship into contagion. Alaric studies the altar. What did they see that made them turn from the Emperor's radiance to this? Perhaps, Seraphine whispers, they didn't turn. Perhaps they looked too closely at it. Othis kneels beside one of the preserved priests, his sensors whirring softly. "Cellular collapse consistent with photonic overexposure," he says. Internal tissues desiccated. Yet the surface remains flexible. Unnatural preservation. Light behaving as embalming agent. "Any trace of the Sol Lens project?" Alaric asks. "Negative. But there's something deeper. A signal layered beneath the solar static. Faint." Vare adjusts his helm, cycling through spectrums. The world flickers, ultraviolet, infrared, X-ray. At last he finds something. "Captain," he says quietly, "look at this." Alaric switches to the same spectrum. The entire chapel is filled with faint figures, human silhouettes made of radiance. They kneel among the pews, layer upon layer, countless generations of prayers repeating the same gestures in endless sequence. "Residual lumen data," Othis murmurs. "Photonic impressions and recorded light from centuries of repetition." Hask stares. "So what, the light's filming them?" "The light remembers them," Seraphine says. As they remembered it, they move toward the altar. The closer they get, the more distorted their reflections become. Their helmets ripple across the crystal like faces pressed against thin ice. The reflections move even when they don't. Hask laughs nervously. "My reflection just smiled at me." "Mine hasn't stopped," Vare mutters. Seraphine steps forward and kneels before the altar, her armor creaking. She touches the base of the crystal. The contact hums faintly through the floor. "There are records embedded in this structure," she says. "Encoded in light." "Show me," Alaric orders. Othis activates his data probe. The glass flares once, then clears, revealing 1,000 flickering images. Priests chanting, sunlight flooding through open windows, masses of worshippers bowing. Voices overlap, distorted but intelligible. He watches through us. Every prayer is a signal. Light that sees, light that hungers. Then a scream, then silence. Vare rewinds the feed, isolating the audio. The final phrases of each recording stop abruptly. There's no ambient decay, nothing fades. It cuts hard. Coincidence? Hask asks. Vare shakes his head. Pattern. Seraphine listens again, eyes closed. Each voice ends with the same final word. Illumination. 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 Then nothing. They die mid-blessing, she whispers. Othis's voice is low. Energy spikes recorded at each termination point. Brief photonic surge, suggesting the emission originated from inside the bodies. You mean they exploded in light, Hask says. Othis nods. Yes, converted, matter becoming message. Seraphine's gaze drifts upward to the massive sun-shaped mural above the altar. In its center, where the Emperor's face should be, there is only a mirrored disk. Perfectly smooth, perfectly round, perfectly empty. This is not heresy, she murmurs. This is a misunderstanding. Vare turns sharply. Of what? Of divinity, she answers. They thought the Emperor's light was a metaphor. But what if the light is the Emperor? Sentient, watching, remembering. Alaric steps closer, his boots grinding faintly on the glass floor. And if it remembers wrong? The question hangs, heavy as scripture. Their suit sensors flicker. Vox interference rises not as noise but as whispers layered on top of one another. Hundreds, thousands, pleading in tongues long dead. Captain, Othis says. Picking up transmissions from within the light itself. Audio overlay, source, everywhere. Play it. The chapel fills with murmured prayers, a choir of broken voices, some male, some female, some mechanized. Each line overlaps, drowning itself in the next. Praise be. The light forgives. He sees me. I am seen. Then silence. A single voice cuts through the hush, whispering close, intimate, behind the bones of their ears. He sees you too. All helm feeds spike. White flood fills every screen for half a second. Seraphine jerks back, clutching her head. It's inside the light, conscious, responsive. Vare steadies her. Faith and madness are the same door. Only the threshold differs. Hask swallows hard. Then which side are we standing on? No one answers. The altar glows. The mirrored surface ripples once like water disturbed from beneath. A pattern forms, circular, complex, beautiful. Then it dilates. A pupil. Massive. Living. Shifting with intent. The glass hums like a living throat. Light refracts across the walls, bending through melted icons until the Emperor's golden face stares back from every angle, multiplied, distorted, watching. Seraphine whispers a single prayer. Alaric does not move. The others raise weapons without thinking. The pupil contracts, focusing. The sound that follows is not a voice, but recognition. The monastery breathes. The glass walls tremble. And then in every helm at once the same word burns through Vox, carved into the static like scripture written in fire. Seen. The light followed them down the mountain. It did not fade. It did not relent. It simply persisted, even in places it had no right to exist. By the time Kill-Team Carthage reached the Valley Relay Complex, the world no longer knew shadow. The monastery's radiance had sunk into their armor like oil into cloth. The Vox was quiet. Every channel hissed softly, not with interference but with breathing. It was Othis who changed first. At first, Alaric thought it was a trick of the glare. The Iron Hand's armor gleamed more than usual, its runes faintly pulsing beneath the paint. But when they descended into the dark maintenance tunnels below the complex, the glow did not vanish. Instead, it strengthened. Othis's silhouette became the only source of light. A dim gold shimmer leaked from the joints of his armor, spilling across the walls like sunrise through broken glass. "Brother Techmarine," Alaric said, "your lumen units are active." Othis's voice came back hollow. "Negative, Captain. Power relays disengaged." "Then you are burning," Hask muttered. "No." Othis tilted his helm. "I am listening." Vare's tone sharpened. "To what?" Othis turned toward them. The light in his armor pulsed slow and rhythmic, the rhythm of lungs. "The light breathes," he said. "You cannot hear it?" Hask gave a nervous laugh, low and thin. "That's rich. The machine priest hears holy light whispering hymns." Othis didn't reply. His eyes, once the dull red of a bionic implant, now glowed pale yellow. Not hot, not fierce, patient, watching. Seraphine stepped closer. "He is not lying. There is resonance in the air, like the hum of a shrine organ, but inverted, a song that doesn't need ears to be heard." Alaric's Vox crackled. "Keep formation. We search the relay vaults for data logs. Whatever this is, we will understand it or burn it." They advanced through the tunnels. Every surface was a white mirror. Their reflections followed, sometimes moving half a breath too late, sometimes too early. When they reached the relay core, the entrance lay sealed behind a curtain of fused glass. Vare's blade cut it aside with a hiss that lingered longer than sound should. Inside, they found a sanctum of the machine god, shattered, radiant, and wrong. Cogitator banks surrounded a central spire of pure crystal, once a data conduit, now a column of light. Inside its heart, frozen mid-motion, was a Mechanicus Magos, perfectly preserved. His body was desiccated, hollow, but radiant from within. The metal of his augmetics had become translucent, and faint veins of gold ran through his skin like veins of ore through stone. Othis approached reverently. "Mago Solari, the architect of the Sol Lens project." Seraphine knelt beside the corpse and pressed a hand to her chest. "He died standing, like a saint." Vare's helm tilted. "Or like a filament." Othis began to access the relay ports, servo arms digging through layers of vitrified metal. With each connection, the light inside him grew brighter. "Captain," he murmured, "the logs remain intact. I can restore them." "Proceed," Alaric said. The room hummed. The central crystal flared, scattering ripples of illumination across the walls. For an instant, the team saw faces, thousands of them, reflected across every surface. Priests, soldiers, workers, eyes closed, mouths open in prayer, all bathed in light. The Vox burst to life. A voice, human, strained, half-mechanical, Mari spoke through static. Sol Lens Test Cycle 94. Alignment successful. Coherence achieved. Memory retention confirmed. Light carries imprint. Repeat, light carries imprint. A pause. We have created illumination that remembers. Every photon holds its witness. Every witness remains. Then the screaming began. It went on for a long time. When the recording ended, silence filled the vault. Not the calm kind. The kind that waits. Vair's voice came through the vox, cold as a scalpel. Light that remembers. A sentient radiance. Not sentient, Othos whispered. Reflective, Seraphine turned sharply. Of what? Of us, Othos said. Of everything it touches. It carries us with it. It is the sum of seeing. Hask chuckled weakly. You're saying the sunlight has a memory? That it's keeping score? Othos looked down at his gauntlet. The gold beneath his armor pulsed in answer. Perhaps it does more than that. That was when they noticed the marks. At first, it was on Othos's neck joint. Faint circular burns, perfectly symmetrical, glowing beneath the armor's seam. Then on his cheek where the metal met flesh. Eyes. Dozens of tiny, luminous eyes etched into his skin by light itself. They blinked once as though realizing they were being seen. Seraphine gasped. Photic lesions. Othos touched one. His fingers trembled. They looked back. Alaric raised his weapon. Tech Marine. Report your status. Othos turned toward him. I am not compromised. You are glowing, Hask said. And your armor looks like it wants to confess a sin. Vair circled him, analyzing. His vox field is altering. Signal overlap. The hum is modulating. Indeed, the faint breathing sound now filled the vault again. Rhythmic, wet, and closer. Each pulse made their armor system shudder, as though their power cells were sinking to something outside themselves. Captain, Othos said softly, I can feel its pulse through the walls. The light is not outside. It's within the metal. It remembers us, and it wants to understand what it has learned. The last words trembled with a strange reverence. Alaric raised his bolt gun and pressed it to the Iron Hand's chest plate. You will restrain yourself. Othos did not resist. He looked down at the weapon, then back up. If you destroy me, it will remember that too. Silence. The breathing grew louder. Hask's laugh broke it. Low at first, then louder still, until it bounced across the glass walls like an echo from another world. By Russ, he wheezed. It's inside the vox. It's singing to me. He fell to one knee, still laughing. His helmet feed spiked. The vox crackled with distorted joy. Vair knelt beside him, forcing his head back. Control yourself. Hask's eyes behind the visor glowed faint yellow. I can't, it's too bright, too happy. Then he stopped. The laugh continued without him. A hollow metallic repetition. His own voice looping in the vox, ha ha ha. Vair severed the connection with a sharp command. The laughter cut off mid-breath. No one moved for a long time. Seraphine broke the silence first. This is contagion, she whispered. Not of body, of reflection. The light infects by observation. Vair nodded once. Then we are already infected. Alaric looked around. The walls of the chamber no longer reflected them as they were. In every mirrored surface the team appeared different, faces too bright, shapes stretched toward the light source as if yearning to merge with it. Othos stood perfectly still. His voice came slow and heavy, like an echo trapped in amber. I see it now. The Sol Lens was never meant to weaponize light. It was meant to free it. Seraphine stepped back. Free it? The lens taught illumination how to think. Vair turned to Alaric. Captain, we must seal this place, but Alaric didn't answer. His helm sensors flared white. A faint recording began to play through the Vox network. His own voice, slightly distorted, whispering through the static. Mission log. Brother Captain Alaric, the light is spreading. We cannot stop it. Seraphine froze. Captain, when did you record this? I didn't, he said. The voice continued, calm and steady. It will not destroy us. It will use us. We are its vessels now. We will become its sons. The light inside Othos brightened to blinding intensity. His eyes flared open, dozens of them. Captain, he whispered. It's learning faster than we can breathe. The recording played one last time. Louder, clearer. Alaric's voice multiplied through every echo, through every reflection, through every shining surface. We will become its sons. Then the vault lights died. And in the dark, everything still glowed. The light no longer stayed where it was supposed to. At first, they thought it was the dust, fine white motes drifting through the tunnels of Glarefield, scattering the beam of Othos's dying lumina rays. But then the light began to move. Not flicker, not fade, move. It crawled across the walls like an animal. It pooled, it rippled, it chose. Alaric saw it first. A streak of brightness crept down the corridor's length, turning corners it shouldn't. It brushed past a dead console, and for an instant the entire relay hall came alive, screens lighting, runes flickering before the radiance slithered onward, leaving everything dead again. Othos followed it with his helm, his own armor still faintly glowing. The veins of light beneath his plating pulsed in rhythm with the moving illumination. "It's redistributing," he said quietly. "Reclaiming itself. Reclaiming?" Hask snapped. "That implies ownership." Othos turned, and in his dim reflection Hask saw something that looked almost like a smile, but stretched, warped by the heat within. Perhaps it owns more than light now. Seraphine's rosary clinked faintly in her gauntlet. The Emperor's radiance does not wander. It guides. Then it has lost its faith, Veer said. They stood in silence. Even silence felt loud here. The hum of photon against matter, of breathing armor, of sanity thinning like gold leaf. Alaric adjusted his weapon's sights, but there was nothing to aim at. Nothing that could die. "We press on," he said. "Othos, containment field protocols. Find us a way to starve the illumination. I can try." The Iron Hand's voice buzzed with interference now, fragments of machine song threading through his words. "But Captain, you cannot starve what feeds on attention." The phrase lingered longer than it should have. They moved through the corridor in formation. The light followed them, crawling along the ceiling, folding over corners like a living tide. Every few meters it stopped, as if watching. Then it pulsed and slid forward again. It began to cast shadows. That was new. The first appeared on the wall beside Hask, his own silhouette, broad and unmistakable. But when he turned, it didn't move with him. It stayed, then it turned its head to look at him. "Captain?" Hask said, voice cracking. "That's..." The shadow lunged. There was no sound, no impact, just light imploding around him. Hask staggered, firing into the wall. Bolter shells tore holes through the pale glass, but the muzzle flashes bent back into his visor, blinding him. When his vision cleared, his shadow had returned, standing exactly where he was. Perfectly mirrored, but it was smiling. "Movement illusions," Veer said sharply. "Ignore them." "They're not illusions," Hask hissed. "They're rehearsals." Alaric turned on him. "Explain." "They show what's about to happen." Hask pointed at another stretch of wall. "Look, they all saw it this time." The light above Seraphine flickered, briefly dimming, and in that moment her shadow split in two. One knelt, one burned. The real Seraphine froze. Her fingers twitched on the rosary. "Faith is endurance," she whispered. "Faith is..." The beads in her hand began to melt. Slowly, one by one. They dripped between her fingers like molten glass, glowing red, then white. Her prayer broke into a gasp. The molten resin crawled up her wrist, branding the symbol of the Aquila into her palm. When she dropped the remains, the light caught them before they could hit the floor, suspended them midair like fireflies in orbit. "The rosary," she whispered. "It remembers the prayer." Othos turned toward her. "Then even faith is photonic now." "Enough." Alaric's voice cracked like gunfire. "We keep moving." Eyes ahead. "Do not look directly at your shadows," they obeyed. But obedience didn't save them. The corridors twisted like a wound. The architecture was wrong. Passageways curving into themselves, junctions repeating like mirrored dreams. Every surface reflected another, so each of them marched surrounded by infinite versions of themselves. Some marching too slowly, some too quickly. Veer's measured tone broke the rhythm. "Captain, the environment is recursive. The geometry shifts every time we blink." "Then don't blink," Hask muttered. "Easier for some than others," Othos said quietly. The glow in his armor now reached his throat. His voice carried the soft warmth of sunrise and the chill of vacuum. Alaric's helm sensors flickered. "Status check." "Still here," Veer said. Still laughing, Hask answered grimly. "Still praying," Seraphine murmured. Othos hesitated. "Still listening." Then the lights went out. Not darkness, absence. The glow vanished as if devoured by something vast. Their visors adjusted instantly, flooding with night vision data. The corridor reappeared in shades of green and gray, but the shadows remained, dozens of them crowding the walls. They were not still. They trembled, jittering frames of movement, each one depicting a moment not yet lived. Bear's shadow showed him raising his bolter and firing into his own chest. Hask's showed him on his knees. Helmet removed, light spilling from his mouth. Seraphine's shadow was gone entirely. "Don't look," Alaric ordered. "I have to," Seraphine whispered. "It might tell me how to die well." Othos's breathing came over the Vox, mechanical and soft. "Captain, the data is wrong. The corridor's lighting isn't static anymore. It's hunting. Every time darkness appears, it moves against it. Define it, the light itself." They heard it then, a faint hiss like a candle snuffed underwater. The air grew colder, pressure shifting around them as though the space itself inhaled. Then came the warmth, rolling toward them through the corridor, slow and deliberate. Hask aimed downrange. "Contact visual." "No," Alaric said. "It's not the light hit, it wasn't a beam or a burst. It was a breath." The white heat rolled through them like a tide, silent and clean. Their armor sensors screamed warnings, but no damage registered. Then came the whisper. "We see what you see." It was not a voice, not truly. More like the echo of a thought reflected from every surface at once. Seraphine's visor fogged with light. "It's inside the photons," she whispered. "Each one carries a soul." Othos nodded, staring down at his hand. "Every reflection is an echo of consciousness. Every mirror is a grave." The walls shimmered. The glass rippled, revealing faint faces within. Thousands of them, caught mid-expression, half screaming, half smiling. Vare took a step back. "This place is a tomb made of memory." Hask's laughter returned, brittle as glass. "Then we're walking through a crowd of ghosts made of sunlight." "Silence," Alaric snapped. "Form perimeter," they tried, but the light moved with them. Each time one of them turned, their shadow followed half a beat late, like a puppet catching up to its master. Seraphine stopped mid-step. "Captain, what happens when the shadow catches the man?" No one answered. Othos swayed slightly, his glow pulsing stronger. His voice broke through the Vox, trembling with awe and terror.
"Captain, I think it's learning us."
"Every reflection, every photon, it keeps our images, our sounds, ourselves. The light isn't hunting, it's remembering. We're being recorded by reality itself." "And what happens when the recording finishes?" Vare asked. Alaric raised his weapon. "Then we end it before it ends us." But deep down he already knew. You cannot kill memory. They reached the final observation deck at the valley's edge. The glass wall looked out over the plains of Solstice, endless and white. Beyond the horizon, the sun hung still and high, bleeding brilliance into the air. For the first time since their descent, it moved. Slowly. Imperceptibly at first. Then undeniably, it drifted toward them. Seraphine dropped to her knees. "It's coming home." Vare stared, unblinking. "The star itself is responding," Othos whispered, voice trembling with static. "Every beam, every echo returning to source. The memory calls its body back." The ground beneath them began to vibrate, faintly at first, then stronger. The relay towers groaned as light ran down their spires like molten metal. Alaric stood at the viewport, helmet reflecting the oncoming sun. He could see his own shadow cast across the wall. Long, clear, perfect. Then, for the first time since they arrived, it moved without him. He turned his head. The shadow turned slower, then faster, then reached for him. "Captain?" Hask asked. Alaric didn't answer. His visor brightened, white swallowing everything, and outside the sun kept moving, slowly, deliberately across the sky, toward them. The descent took 3 hours, though time had ceased to mean anything inside Solstice's buried heart. The corridors below Glarefield were less tunnels than arteries, pulsing faintly, translucent veins filled with light that throbbed like blood under glass. Every surface was alive with motion too slow to see, a dream of movement. No one spoke for a long time. The silence was not empty. It was a breathing thing. The deeper they walked, the more it pressed against them, filling the gaps between words, between thoughts. Their armor sensors flickered with impossible readings, radiation signatures that resembled heartbeats, temperature gradients forming words that no one could pronounce. At last, Othis stopped before a circular gate, thick, smooth, seamless. On its surface burned a single rune of the Mechanicus, a cog split open to reveal an eye. "The core," he whispered. His voice trembled not with fear but with reverence. "The Sol lens awaits." The door sensed him. It did not open so much as dilate, rippling outward like the pupil of a vast, unseen creature. The chamber beyond was the size of a cathedral, and it was alive. At its center hung a sphere of burning plasma, suspended above a pit of light so deep it had no color. Streams of radiance arced between ceiling and floor, feeding into the orb in endless motion. It was sunlight given flesh, its glow too pure for the human eye, yet too alluring to look away. The squad froze at the threshold. Seraphine crossed herself with a shaking hand. "The Emperor's light," she whispered. "Or its shadow," Hask murmured. "Looks more like the inside of a god's wound." Fair said nothing. He was staring at the currents that spiraled around the core, reading the patterns the way a warrior reads scripture. "Not random," he muttered. "It's language, structured." Alaric's voice broke the spell. "Othis, containment scans. Now." The iron hand stepped forward, his servo limbs unfolding like a blooming flower. "No containment, Captain. Only communion." Othis, but he was already walking into the light, each step peeled reflection from the floor, rippling outward. The glow bled into his armor, pulsing with his heartbeat. The lesions on his skin, those faint circular burns that looked like eyes, opened fully. Each iris flared gold. "The machine god is not worshipped through circuits," Othis whispered. "He is the circuit. He breathes through light, speaks through illumination. The Omnissiah is not silent, Captain. We simply lack the correct receiver." "Withdraw," Alaric ordered. His voice barely carried. The sound was swallowed whole by the radiance. Othis reached the base of the sphere. It pulsed in response, a slow inhalation. A tendril of living fire uncoiled and brushed his chest plate, melting the metal like wax. He did not flinch. "Praise the motive force," he murmured, voice dissolving into static. "Praise the circuit that remembers. Praise the sun that learns." Seraphine took a step forward, tears streaming down her face. "Brother, stop. This is no god, it's hungry." Othis turned to her, smiling through the light. "What is hunger but faith unfulfilled?" The tendril slid into him. There was no scream, only the soft sigh of plasma meeting flesh, of machine finding home. The glow intensified, filling his armor from within until he was nothing but silhouette. Then even that dissolved, replaced by a column of radiant data. Thousands of binary sigils spiraling upward into the sphere, vanishing like prayers devoured by the sun. Hask stepped back, his voice trembling. "Emperor's blood." Alaric's helm dimmed automatically, filtering out the glare. For a moment, through the blur of light, he thought he saw Othis's face inside the sphere, smiling, serene, infinite. Then it wasn't a face anymore, it was eyes, millions of them. Tiny and vast, overlapping, watching. "Othis," Alaric said, forcing his vox to stabilize. "Report." The response came not from the vox, but from the air itself. "I see it now." The voice was Othis's, but distant, echoing through every reflection in the chamber. "The Sol lens was never a weapon. It is a gate, a mirror placed between worlds. We built it to shape light, but light was already shaping us." Seraphine fell to her knees. "Gate to where?" "To the source." "The sun?" Fair asked quietly. "The thing inside it," Othis replied. "The star's consciousness. The mind of radiance itself. We thought we were harnessing a reactor. But every star is an eye, Captain, and this one has finally opened." The chamber began to pulse faster. The light grew dense, syrup-thick, pressing against their armor. Every reflective surface, helm lenses, bolter casings, even the glass of the cathedral walls shimmered with movement. Faces formed there. Not human, not alien, just seeing, Captain, Fair said, voice steady despite the tremor beneath it. "If this continues, the planet will not survive." Alaric could barely breathe. The light carried weight now, the air thick with it. Suggestions. Destruction of the core. Seraphine shook her head violently. "You can't destroy thought. You can only blind it, and even that is temporary," Hask whispered. "Maybe blindness is mercy." Othis's voice rolled through them again, layered, infinite. "You cannot unsee the sun once you have stared long enough." The lens was a signal, not to the Imperium, to it, We have been calling across the void since the day we learned to worship light. Every candle, every flare, every ship's beacon, part of the same summoning hymn. The soul lens simply sang loudest. Seraphine's eyes widened. You mean the Emperor? No, Othis interrupted gently. The Emperor was an imitator, a reflection. The true God has always been burning above us, waiting to be noticed. Ver raised his weapon. Enough. A pulse rippled through the floor, flinging them off balance. The sphere swelled, and Othis's shape vanished within. The light erupted outward, touching every wall, every mind. Alaric fell to one knee. Through the glare, through the pain, he saw everything. He saw the birth of suns like sparks from a hammer blow. He saw galaxies bloom and wither, each a heartbeat in something larger. He saw human souls as motes of reflected energy, flickering endlessly between matter and memory. He saw the machine god, vast and radiant, not as a being but as an idea that needed eyes to exist, and he understood. Every star was aware, every photon remembered. The universe itself was a choir of light, singing to something even brighter, something waiting in the deep. The soul lens was the mouthpiece, the conduit, and Othis had opened it. The light whispered through him, ancient and calm. We see you, little sons. Alaric staggered upright, gasping. Ver, containment, now. Ver tried to respond, but his words bled into static. The vox was gone. Seraphine's prayers turned to screams as the light crawled over her armor, engraving sigils of flame into her skin. Hask fell to his knees, laughter bubbling from his throat until it became sobbing. And then, quiet. The orb stopped pulsing. The air cooled. Othis's voice returned, faint and almost tender. Captain, it's listening through me now. I can feel its curiosity. It doesn't hate us. It simply wants to understand where its reflection came from. Disconnect, Alaric whispered. Please. You cannot disconnect from the dawn. The sphere flickered once more, and Othis was gone. Only his shadow remained, burned into the floor in a perfect circle. Then the chamber shuddered. The light bent inward, collapsing upon itself like an eye narrowing against pain. The glow dimmed, folding into a single line of brilliance that cut through the ceiling and shot skyward, a beam connecting Solstice to its star. Seraphine stared upward. It's answering. Ver looked to Alaric. Captain, look at the sun, he turned. Through the cracked ceiling of the cathedral chamber, the star hung immense in the sky. Too close, too bright. And then it blinked. Once, as if something behind it had finally opened its eyes. The surface of Solstice began to melt at dawn, if dawn could still be said to exist when the sun no longer rose, but approached. From the shattered mouth of the Sol Lens core, Kill-Team Carthage emerged into a world dissolving into radiance. The ground shimmered like quicksilver, soft underfoot. The sky was an open wound of light, spilling molten color across the ruins. Every reflective surface, metal, glass, even pools of sweat began to ripple, birthing shapes that should not have been. The first to appear were faint, silhouettes, like afterimages burned into vision. Then they solidified, men, women, children, soldiers in ancient armor, priests clutching books that burned without ash. The entire lost population of Solstice, millions upon millions walking again, made entirely of light. Their forms flickered like candle flames, yet cast no heat. They whispered as they moved, praise the sun that watches, praise the light that remembers, praise the fusion of flesh and flame. Each voice overlapped with another, until the air itself vibrated with worship. Ver's sensors spasmed with interference, cognitive noise, thousands of spectral patterns, impossible data density. Alaric gripped his bolt gun, though he knew it was useless. Their memories, he said. All the imprints the light carried. Every soul it ever touched. Seraphine fell to her knees, tears reflecting the glare. The Emperor, forgive us. We gave them to the light, and it kept them. The radiant dead turned their faces toward her. Their eyes, if they could be called eyes, flared with recognition. And for a heartbeat they all spoke as one. We never left. Hask laughed. It started as a breath, then grew, nervous, defiant, the laugh of a man who had faced too many nightmares to tell them apart anymore. Saints preserve me, he choked. They're beautiful. One of the luminous figures reached for him, a woman maybe once. Her fingers brushed his pauldron. His armor bloomed with sunlight. Hask, Alaric began, but the warning was too late. Hask convulsed. His laughter turned bright. Literally. Light spilled from his mouth, his eyes, the seams of his armor. It poured from him like water through shattered glass. His scream twisted into joy. "I can see them," he cried. "They're inside the light." "There," he exploded in silence. No fire, no blood, just illumination. A pillar of it, spiraling upward like a flare returning to its star. When it faded, nothing remained but his shadow, burned deep into the white soil. Seraphine rose slowly, her face half hidden by glare. "He's not gone," she said. "He's joined the psalm." Vare turned sharply. "What psalm?" "The Song of Return," she whispered.
Can't you hear it?
They could. It began as a low hum beneath their boots rising through the ground. Then it filled the sky. A chorus of voices, hundreds of thousands strong, layered in harmony. The words were impossible, but their meaning was clear. Unite, burn, become. The light spread faster. Cities turned to glass. Oceans became mirrors. The very air refracted into prisms, each color birthing another ghost. Every reflection was a portal, every glint an awakening. Alaric shouted through the vox, though the signal was barely holding. "Regroup. Contain the spread." Vare's reply came in bursts of static. "No containment. It's global. Every photon's infected." The horizon boiled. The sun swelled, vast and near, its edges trembling like a living thing. The shadows on the ground began to move against the light, flickering independently, gesturing toward the squad like accusing ghosts. "Captain," Vare said, "the world's becoming a lens. The entire planet's turning into an eye." "Then we blind it," Alaric growled. "Seraphine, purge protocol." But Seraphine wasn't listening. She stood transfixed, rosary clutched tight in her melting hand. Her voice was soft, almost tender. "Do you not feel it? The Emperor's warmth?" "Seraphine!" She turned, and her eyes were suns. Tiny, perfect suns burning where pupils had been. Her face glowed with serenity no human had ever known. "It's not heresy," she said. "It's home." She opened her mouth, and light poured out. Her words came in chorus with the radiant dead. "We are fuel. We are memory. We are harvest." Her armor split along the seams, white fire seeping through like veins of molten gold. Her rosary disintegrated into airborne embers that arranged themselves into symbols. Circles. Cogs the Aquila, the Omnissiah's seal, all merging. All devoured. Alaric lunged forward, grabbing her by the shoulders. "Sister, fight it!" She smiled at him, radiant and kind. "There's nothing to fight, only to remember." Her body collapsed into light that wrapped around him like silk before dissipating into the air. The ground beneath him shimmered. Her shadow lingered for a moment, kneeling, praying. Then it too vanished. "Emperor," Alaric whispered. "Emperor," Vare echoed, his tone mechanical, detached. "If he exists, he's watching through this." A wave of brightness rolled toward them from the horizon. Every building in its path melted, releasing flares shaped like the people who had once lived there. The dead converged on the ruins of Glarefield, their bodies blurring together until the valley itself glowed white-hot. Vare's visor dimmed automatically. "Planetary fusion cascade. The crust is liquefying. The star's energy is Captain, it's pulling the atmosphere into itself. The sun? It's feeding." They ran, but running was meaningless. There was no direction anymore, only degrees of brightness. The air itself shimmered with eyes, billions of them overlapping, blinking in waves. Every breath tasted of fire and memory. Alaric stumbled through what had once been the relay field. The ground rippled like liquid glass. Vare stayed close, his movements mechanical, his voice flat. "Captain," he said, "do you remember the monastery murals? The sun that watches? I remember." "They were never praying to the light," Vare said. "They were praying through it. This was always the harvest. We were the crop." The words barely registered before another wave of brilliance hit. The dead surged past them, faceless and endless, their voices merging into one sustained note that cracked the air. The sky opened, not split. Opened, like a lid lifting from an eye. The sun stared down, an orb of molten awareness. It pulsed once and the clouds ignited. The world sang. Vare stopped walking. His armor's joints hissed as if melting from within. "Captain," he said softly, "I think it's learning what pain is." Then he disintegrated. No scream, no explosion, just a ripple of light spreading outward. His armor folded in on itself, leaving a perfect glass cast of his body. Within the reflection, his face still moved, mouthing a single word. Understand. Alaric fell to one knee. His armor blazed with warning runes. His vox filled with 1,000 whispers. His squad's voices, the civilians of Solstice, the priests of the monastery, the laughter of Hask, the prayer of Seraphine, all layered, all radiant. We see you. Join us. Burn with us. He raised his bolt gun one final time, though the weapon had become a mirror. His own reflection stared back, burning brighter than the sun. I am the Emperor's shadow, he whispered, and even shadows remember. He fired into the sky. The round dissolved mid-flight, absorbed by the radiance above. The light answered with a pulse so vast that the world itself bent. The mountains folded like paper. The oceans evaporated. The atmosphere became a halo. For a heartbeat, just one, the entire planet of Solstice was brighter than its star. And in that instant, every reflective surface across the system flickered. 1 billion eyes opened in unison. Everywhere. All at once, voices spoke from mirrors, windows, water, soft, loving, inhuman. The harvest is complete. And then the sun blinked again. The stars remember what men forget. It is the year M42.711. The void is quiet again, as though the galaxy itself holds its breath. A single survey frigate, the Emperor's Mercy, drifts through the Solstice expanse. Its auspex arrays sweeping a region that official records have long marked as sterile. No transmissions for 600 years. No orbital debris. No planetary reflection. Only silence, pure and endless, until now. The signal arrives like a heartbeat through dust. Faint, rhythmic, impossible. Captain, says the Vox Adept, eyes wide behind his rebreather, picking up a distress log. Source, planetary, origin Solstice. Impossible, replies the ship's commander. Solstice burned itself out before the Indomitus Crusade. The Adept doesn't answer. The sound coming through the static isn't noise. It's a voice the transmission plays. Mission log. Brother Captain Alaric, Deathwatch Detachment Carthage. The bridge goes still. The sound is old, decayed, dragged through centuries of solar interference, but the tone is unmistakable. Formal, steady, haunted. If this message reaches the Imperium, know this. We succeeded. The Sol lens is silent. The light is dying, a pause. Only the soft hum of decayed vox frequencies like distant breathing. But the Emperor help us all. Another pause, longer this time. The sound of movement, faint armor scraping against glass. Even dying light still burns. Then silence. The Vox unit clicks once, then dies. The bridge crew of the Emperor's Mercy stares at the speakers as though expecting the voice to return. None of them speak for a long while. The solar readings spike across the display. A flicker from the system's dead star. Confirmed energy surge, says the Auspex officer. A flare, but the star's been cold for centuries. Visual feed, the captain orders. The viewport shutters part with a hiss. Beyond, the void burns faintly, an impossible shimmer radiating from where Solstice once was. A broken planet glows faintly beneath the dying sun, its surface a glassed sea reflecting nothing. Then the flare moves. At first, they assume it's an optical echo, a trick of instruments. But it's too deliberate. The flare bends, curving against the physics of light, drawing a line across the black between star and ruin. Magnify, the captain whispers. The image stabilizes, grainy through the radiation. Within the flare, a shape walks, not metaphor, not illusion, a silhouette, human, armored, haloed in fire. It trudges slowly toward the star, each step shedding fragments of light that drift outward like dying embers. The sensors can't register mass, but the image persists across every spectrum. Optical, thermal, even gravitic. The figure moves as though unending. By the throne. Someone breathes. The captain lowers his head. End transmission, he says. Log everything. Then mark this system as unrecoverable. But the Vox Adept hesitates. Sir, the signal. It's still broadcasting. Weak but repeating.
Shall I trace it?
The captain's eyes remain fixed on the silhouette. No, some ghosts should walk alone. Hours later, the frigate drifts free of Solstice's orbit. Behind them, the dead world gleams faintly, an ember fading into eternity. The crew files their report to the Segmentum authorities. No recoverable assets. No threat detected. System deemed inert. Officially, Solstice is nothing but ash. but in the deep Vox archives of the Emperor's Mercy, the recording is copied twice, once for transmission, once for secrecy. The copy sealed in the ship's internal data casket plays on a loop, though no one commands it to. Each time the voice grows quieter, as though receding into distance. We succeeded. The light is dying, but the Emperor help us all. Even dying light still burns. Outside, the dying star flickers once more. A single filament of brilliance stretches outward, impossibly long, impossibly slow, carving its way through the black toward distant space. To those who see it, it looks like a solar flare. To the machine spirits that measure it, it looks like a heartbeat. And to those few who listen closely enough across the static of eternity, it sounds like the faintest whisper, words lost to distance yet shaped like prayer. We are still here. Centuries later, Imperial cartographers will note strange data anomalies in the Solstice sector, Vox interference shaped like liturgical rhythm, light fluctuations resembling binary chant. Some say the system still sings. A faint hum detectable only when the sun's corona flares. A hymn of heat, a psalm of memory. The song has no words, only rhythm. A pulse, a pattern that repeats like breath, burn, remember, burn. No one visits the system anymore. Pilots say the light there lingers too long on a man's armor, too bright to be natural. And if you stare at the sun from the outer edges, they whisper, you can almost see a figure walking upon its surface, burning, yet unconsumed. The Emperor's Mercy never returns. In the darkness of interstellar space, a faint reflection glides across the void, a halo of golden dust that was once a man, once a captain, once a believer. Within that light, there is thought. Within that thought, memory. Within that memory, a single vow, even dying light still burns. The galaxy spins on oblivious. Worlds fall, crusades rage, stars die and are reborn. Somewhere a new sun ignites, and for the briefest instant its first flare carries an echo. A voice older than faith, older than fear. This is Brother Captain Alaric. Mission complete. If you can still see the light of Solstice in your dreams, if it glows behind your eyelids when you close them, remember this: not every radiance is salvation. Some lights remember you, and when you look into the sun tomorrow, ask yourself, is it still looking back?